Hi again then guys, and welcome to another review from GT Sport 1.53 obviously, and this is another one of the safety cars or pace cars or police cars if you will, as many people are using them as, that has dropped today, and it is of course the Megane safety car. Once again it's 5,000 mileage points, so between all three it's actually fairly expensive for those people who don't race a lot, because obviously if you do for instance the Blue Moon Bay money method that myself I still do, many of you still do, then you earn a ton of points very quickly. But for people who don't do that kind of thing, it can sometimes take a bit longer, and I've actually had a few people saying about what's the best way to get those mileage points quickly. That's always the answer I give, because you really do clock them up very, very fast. Now, as far as this particular car goes, it's no surprise to say that in a similar way to the Charger and the Crown, it's virtually identical in a performance way to the regular Megane Sport. And interestingly, I actually have not re-reviewed the normal Megane, unlike the Charger and the Crown, in this game yet. I have not reviewed the road version. So I will be reviewing that one as well, except on this occasion that review will probably be a little bit shorter than this one in the opposite way to the other two safety cars. Now, I might even review that one tomorrow just to catch up, but I didn't want to roll it into one video together because typically when somebody's looking for a car review, it tends to be very specific. If they're looking for a Megane, they want to hear about the Megane. If they're looking specifically for the safety car, then they want to know about the safety car, not just both shoved in together. Now, as far as the performance on this one goes, you're looking at a 2-litre engine, of course front engine, front-wheel drive chassis, 261 horsepower, which is pretty good, 265 pound-feet of torque, which is even better, and the weight is 1,387 kilos. So it's actually fairly hefty for a front-wheel drive car, but at the same time, modern hot hatches of this caliber, you know, your Golfs, Focuses, Meganes, they are a lot bigger than they used to be. I mean, just compare Mini's new models to the classic one. It's like 4 times the size of the vehicle, but in terms of performance, I love what Renault does with their performance cars. The Meganes especially are my favourite cars that they do. This generation is not my favourite. I actually love the early 2000s, the shaking that ass generation of Megane Cup with the 225 horsepower, and then later on my favourite Megane of all was the R26, which is I think an awesome car. This one though still carries all of that potential that they had, and in a similar way to what Nissan does with each new GTR, not just the GTR but even the Skyline lineage as well, what Chevrolet does with the Corvette, what Porsche does with the 911, to a more mainstream degree, I would say Renault does with the Megane, especially the high performance ones, and that is that every new generation really does build on the strengths of the previous one. And I've got a little bit of a hot take on that, where I think the Megane, in its evolution of performance, is actually more impressive than the Clio. I believe that the newer Clios are actually not as hardcore and not as involved for the driver as some of the older ones are, the Clio 182 or the Clio V6. The newer ones for me just don't have that kind of character and passion anymore, whereas the Meganes genuinely are faster, more hardcore. They re-break the same Nürburgring records every time, so they genuinely do go from strength to strength. And in the case of this car, much in the same way as the Charger and the Crown, there is no significant advantage of this car over the regular Megane. In fact, I would argue that this is probably the weakest of the three safety cars in terms of how many players are going to use it, because the Charger is undoubtedly going to get the most use because it's the most authentic cop car looking vehicle of the three, and also of course it's by far the fastest. Then the Crown will probably still get a good amount of use, like Tokyo lobbies, that kind of stuff in Japanese police livery. This one I think will get the least. You might see a few of them, especially in the first few days after getting the car, but then I think this one will probably drop off quicker than the other two, because just like those cars, it is in Group X. That's a pretty significant downside to something like a hot hatch, because at the same time it's not like the Charger where it's got a huge amount of power, nearly 1,000 horses in that case, and it's even not like the Crown either, which has got around, what, 400-500 horsepower easily, which is still more than enough to work with for a cop lobby. This, on the other hand, this is a more like British style cop car, which is interesting in that sense, but you're not going to catch that many vehicles in a, 350 horsepower front-wheel drive tuned hatchback. In real life, of course, you could, but not in Gran Turismo. I mean, good luck tracking down a LaFerrari in a Megane Cup. But overall, in terms of how it feels, of course it's virtually identical, if not identical, to that Megane. So as I said, I will be reviewing that one as well, except on the point of reviewing the road version, the purchasable version from the Renault dealership. Of course, that car is, from a performance and from a usability point of view, really a significantly better vehicle, because it's more useful, it's easier to buy because you don't have to wait for it to be in the mileage exchange, you can just buy it any time, it's not particularly expensive, and the credit price of that normal version is far more easy to attain for many players than getting 5,000 mileage points is for this car. So ultimately, that's it for my relatively brief thoughts on the Megane safety car. If you haven't bought it already, I would say that unless you specifically really want this one, it's probably the one of the three that you could give a miss to the most. If I was going to say just get one of the three, then I would definitely recommend the Charger, because it looks cool, it's got great performance, huge amount of power, and it's one of those cop car lobby style vehicles that you can use that actually genuinely can keep up with a lot of the other cars in the game because it is so fast and so powerful. Then, as I said, the Crown not so much, and this one easily the least of the three. It's interesting, but it's certainly the most safety car-esque of the three and the least cop car, I will say that. Overall though, as I said, that's it for my thoughts. If you've already bought it, tell me what you think of it down below, and until next time, I'll see you then. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.